Hey Skywatchers, this week we are delighted to have on the program Stewart Swerdlow. He's a former secret government mentalist, he's a clairvoyant, he's author of many books including the riveting Blue Blood, True Blood, Conflict and Creation, and the recent 13 Cubed. Skywatchers, we talk with Stewart about the recent, quote, natural catastrophes in China. Stewart and many Skywatchers suspect Typhoon Nargis and the earthquake were engineered. A trend, says Stewart, not unlike the engineered shortages in food and oil. He explains why. Stewart also writes about galactic history and alien groups visiting the planet. As Skywatchers, we've photographed and filmed anomalies such as disks and orbs. We asked Stewart if he knows who they belong to. Let's have a listen. Welcome, Stewart Swerdlow, to Skywatch Radio.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity.
Well, we wanted to get your take on what's going on with weather being used as a weapon. We know that in our research, we see that there are white paper military studies titled Owning the Weather by 2025, using terms like full spectrum dominance. There's another white paper study called Hit 'em Where It Hurts, actually spraying nanotech fibers that people breathe in, and they're able to transmit and receive data. We suspect, and I realize you also do, suspect that possibly an engineered catastrophe and using weather as a weapon regarding Typhoon Nargis.
That's true, and as a matter of fact, despite whatever those articles mention, weather technology or using weather as a weapon has been around since the Germans in World War II. And they had experimented on that even before World War II. So it's very old technology, and for all intents and purposes, you can say that here in 2008, they can manipulate weather, geological events, pretty much 100% of the time.
One thing that we look for in our research, and the other Skywatchers do as well, is a smoking gun. I know you pay attention to a lot of detail in that regard. Have you seen anything that you could say, okay, there's a smoking gun on, here's a engineered catastrophe?
Well, all you have to do as far as China or Myanmar is concerned is look at what's been going on since really last fall. The weather, the seismic events have been anomalous over a period of time. If you go back into the USGS records, especially where Myanmar is concerned, and you look at the earthquakes that have occurred in that region, which for Myanmar it would be very rare, you would see that they were testing or fine-tuning or pinpointing where they were going to direct or steer the cyclone as it hit the coastline. And if you look in the USGS back in September, October, November, you will see that there were quakes in the Gulf there and along the coast of Myanmar. And then, of course, just a couple of weeks ago, they directed the cyclone right to those points, right where the earthquakes occurred. So it was as if they had used the electromagnetic or scalar satellite weaponry in order to pinpoint the direction and test their equipment so that they could fine-tune everything before they actually did the event. As far as China is concerned, the quake, and I wrote this on my website, and I have written about it subsequently, it's almost as if someone took a giant fist and pounded the middle of China and said, you better watch out or do what we say or it's going to be worse. Because the quake was almost at the geographic center of China, which is extremely anomalous right there. And the fact that it shook China from even Taiwan all the way to western Tibet, that's also anomalous. That just doesn't happen.
This is Airship Al. I understand that there was no fault line there.
Well, there's no major fault line. There are little tiny fault lines in the hills and some of the mountainous areas, but certainly they are not capable of producing a quake of an 8 magnitude. That you would find along a tectonic fault line where tectonic plates meet, but you would not find that in an interior section of the Asian plate. It's extremely unusual.
Oh, it's unusual. And when you say unusual, you are possibly suggesting unnatural?
Yes, and again, for me, this is old news. I always refer to the quake in California that we had in 1994, February 1994, that was trying to strike at the heart of the North American headquarters of the Illuminati. And then to the day, 1 year later, they lashed out at Kobe, Japan, and destroyed that city because they knew that the Southern California quake was where that originated. So there is electromagnetic warfare going on between the Illuminati families, and we see this all the time. It's either seismic, it's volcanic, it's weather, all kinds of manipulations electromagnetically and even using microwave pulsar bombardment of a particular area to weaken a fault line or to create an active fault line in one that's been dormant for many years.
This is amazing. And I think what we're doing as Skywatchers, we're chronicling maybe some of the unnatural symptoms that we see in the sky that could be related to these weaponry that is even making earthquakes.
Yes.
There's a war going on, and it is mixing in with natural and unnatural events, so it's confusing, maybe discern what's going on.
Yeah, and that's basically because what they're doing is using natural foundations. In other words, yes, they use places where there are volcanoes, where there are fault lines, and then they enhance them artificially.
Well, Stewart, with this information, and you're seeing this sort of play out, when that bridge in Minnesota collapsed?
Well, that was along I-35, and as many of your listeners probably already know, I-35 is the main corridor of the North American highway that goes from Mexico to Canada. And in fact, in Texas, there are people who are using I-35 and somehow connecting it to Book of Revelation and actually having prayer services on the side of the road there and on the alternate highways that lead into it because they think I-35 is a holy highway, see? And so that was basically what happened in Minnesota was a ritual sacrifice, which they do constantly. 13 people were killed. That's a very big Illuminati number there. As far as predictions for North America, what we're seeing, politically and economically, is the North American Union being formed, where U.S., Canada, and Mexico are being merged into one giant country, just like you see in the EU with the European countries. They're changing the currency for those three countries here to become the Amero, A-M-E-R-O. You can look it up on the internet. It's already been discussed on CNN and the financial networks. And so we're seeing basically a reason for the nations to form together here through catastrophes, natural disasters, economic hardships, where they basically say, hey, if we all join together and we have all these problems, we can unify and overcome them and everything will be better. So once again, you have where they create the problem and then they impose the solution, which basically the people think they want in the first place.
That's right, problem, reaction, solution.